Yes, so let's wait for everybody to sign in. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the annual general meeting of Vulcan Energy Resources Limited. My name's Francis Verdeen and I'm the Executive Chair and co-founder of Vulcan Energy. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which Vulcan's Australian office is situated, the Whadjuk Noongar people. Vulcan recognises their continuing connection to this country and pays respect to elders past and present. Vulcan operates principally in the Upper Rhine Valley of Germany and France, an area of rich cultural heritage and local peoples. Vulcan cherishes this cultural heritage and takes all steps necessary to preserve and protect cultural heritage in its operations. Consistent with our commitment to offer more opportunities for two-way engagement, we are pleased to provide shareholders with the opportunity to attend and participate in a virtual meeting in line with the Corporations Act and Vulcan's Constitution. And with that in mind, I would like to welcome those joining via Zoom from across the world, as well as those attending here in person in Perth. I have been informed that there is a quorum present, and therefore the meeting is properly constituted, and I declare the meeting open at 3:01 p.m. Please ensure that you've signed the attendance register. I would now like to introduce you to the other directors of the company who are present at this meeting. So in Perth, we have Chris Marino. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, good afternoon.
Felicity Gooding. Hi. Joining us online, we have Angus Barker.
Good morning.
Josephine Bush. Might be on mute, Josephine. Yep. Hello.
Hello there. Sorry.
Thanks, Josephine. Heidi Grön.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
And Günther Hilken.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And Heidi and Günther are both joining from Germany, Josephine from the UK, so quite early with them still, so thanks for that. And Angus is joining us from Melbourne today. And may I also introduce Daniel Tidd, Company Secretary and General Counsel here in Perth. For the benefit of all attending the meeting, I kindly ask you to please turn off your mobile phone or switch it to silent mode. In relation to the proceedings for today's meeting, our Managing Director and CEO, Chris Marino, will speak shortly and will provide an update on Vulcan's activities of the past year. I will then proceed with the formal items of business as set out in the notice of meeting. There will be an opportunity to ask questions in response to each resolution and at the end. In the meantime, I would like to briefly highlight the work of the board over the 12 months since our last annual general meeting. In reflection of the 12 months, Chris Marino has continued to drive Vulcan's transformation from a development-focused team into an integrated development, execution, and production company. Chris has built a highly capable project directorate as we focus on delivering Vulcan's integrated renewable energy and lithium production business, the Phase 1 Lionheart project. In addition to her role as Group CFO, Felicity Gooding was appointed Executive Director. Felicity has been instrumental in continuing to progress our goal of completing the financing of Phase 1. Angus Barker was appointed Deputy Chair and Lead Independent Director, acting as the company representative where I am unable to do so, while also acting as the principal liaison between independent directors, company executives, investors, and myself. The Project Oversight Committee provided invaluable guidance and insight into Vulcan's projects. The People and Performance Committee continue to assist the board to provide a competitive remuneration strategy to retain and attract key staff. The Audit, Risk and ESG Committee has monitored the integrity of our financial and ESG reporting and overseen risk as our operations continue to grow in scale and complexity. There were several changes to the composition of our board committees throughout the past year. As the project evolves, the necessary mix of skills and experience also evolves, and we're confident that we have the appropriate level of governance in place. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Chris Marino, the company's Managing Director and CEO, who will outline key commercial and operational developments over the last 12 months and provide an overview of upcoming milestones and strategic objectives. So I'll hand over to you, Chris. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Francis. And good afternoon to everybody. And to those around the world, Europe, good morning as well. 12 months in Vulcan is quite an incredible journey. I can tell you that, and very, very proud in what we've been able to deliver in those 12 months. A quick, I guess, agenda that we'll go through. We'll look a bit at the company and its overview, what we've completed and achieved in the last 12 months. I'm going to ask actually Francis, our chairman, to come up and give a bit of an update on the lithium market as Vulcan sees it. A bit about our strategic direction, which I think is actually really useful to understand where Vulcan is thinking and where it's going to place its time and effort in the following years. And last but not least, setting very clear targets for 2025. Company overview, a quick snapshot. I mean, we continue to see the register evolve. Lots of our key members are here today, but it's great to see a lot of our existing shareholders remaining with us through the last year. I love showing this slide. It really is a snapshot for me of what Vulcan is as a business. There on your screen, you see what a new generation of lithium renewable production can look like. It's low cost, it's sustainable, and it's solution oriented. And to be honest, we are producing from Europe for Europe, but this is a trend that we believe we can actually implement globally. It's a lovely diagram. You see our Insign power plant that we've been operating for the last few years down in the bottom left-hand corner. Number 2, you see the broader Landau city where we've been operating our lithium extraction optimization plant in that box number 2. It's also where we've started selling green heat to the city of Landau for the last few weeks, a major milestone for the company. And in box number 3 is where the future is. It's where we'll be building our new commercial scale industrial organic Rankine power plant, but it's also where we're going to build our commercial lithium extraction plant. And last but not least, on the eastern side over here, on the right-hand side, I'm going to show you more about that. It's where we started drilling a few days ago, our next production well, which is very, very exciting step for the company. So that is also the largest lithium resource in Europe in your picture. That's the largest lithium resource bar none. It's actually globally significant. And that's something we're going to continue to grow over the coming years. So that is Vulcan in a snapshot. So what have we achieved over the last year? Well, I would argue what we've achieved in 12 months is pretty difficult for most companies to achieve in 3 or 4 years, but we've done that in the last 12 months. It's been transformational. We started production of our downstream lithium hydroxide plant a few months ago in January. That was a major milestone, not only because we now are selling or providing a lithium, a battery grade material to our off-takers, but it also showed and demonstrated a proven supply chain from Europe, all the way from a resource into a battery grade material. We were really, it was important for us to also get a lot of government support at the end of last year. And we announced that we received a €100 million grant from the Federal Ministry of Economics and Climate Protection. And that was very much for the heating part of our phase 1 project. So €100 million was well welcomed. We also mentioned a very important partnership. It's part of our future growth, but BASF and the area of Ludwigsland or Ludwigshafen is an incredibly important part or region of Germany where they actually produce an incredible amount of CO2. A few percent actually of Germany's CO2 comes from this site. We have all the licenses underneath this plant, and we're now working in collaboration with BASF on how we're going to decarbonize that plant. The EIB continued to support us, and they came out after their board meeting at the end of last year, providing another confirmation of a €500 million support package for Vulcan. We were very, very happy to receive that. We also had a capital raise at the end of last year. Now, we did that because we want to continue running at the speed that we are, and we believe that was important for us to ensure that we can maintain our timeline, particularly in delivering what we need to our offtake partners. I know Felicity was heavily involved, but at the end of last year, probably breaking the trend globally, we signed €879 million in terms of commitment letters. Were conditional according to a term sheet. That was with EFA, Export Finance Australia, and 7 commercial banks. Quite an incredible feat when you're thinking about where the market is to have that type of support from the lending group. So we were extremely pleased to have that support, and we continue to see that support from those lenders. As mentioned, as soon as we started producing that battery grade material, it demonstrated Europe's first domestic supply chain. I really want to emphasize this was a first of a kind within Europe. And since achieving that, we've received so many inbounds from more and more offtake partners. Perhaps as some were sitting on the fence waiting for that signal, as soon as we achieved that, we received a lot of more interest from a number of partners that hopefully will move into some form of formal agreement in the near future. The start of drilling at Schleierberg, that happened a few days ago. So I'm going to talk a bit more about that, but that's an important step and a milestone for Vulcan, using our own rigs, using our own people to drill a new well within the Lionheart area. We did sign a very important letter of intent with a premium German automaker. This was off the back of exactly that proven supply chain that I talked about. And there are many others as well that we're discussing with. So this is an important step for us to show that we can produce battery grade material within Europe. And the last two more recent, but we also received strong support from KfW, the big German bank, where we've now entered into our investment process. We've got a commitment, it's conditional, of 150 million equity investment, and that's based on successful due diligence. So we're following up on this at the moment. It's taking a lot of our time, but it's a wonderful signal to have the German government behind Vulcan. And last but not least, we were awarded the stamp. It's an important stamp along with 46 other projects that we are of strategic importance to Europe. And this tells you that, following what they're doing regarding critical materials, the Critical Materials Act, Europe is going to support these projects to come life. And that's whether it's in permitting or in financing, we're going to get that support. So it was quite a year. So something we're very, very proud of, and we continue to strive for the same for this year. As mentioned, the stamp and the awarding of EU strategic product status, it tells us that the European Commission and the member states have voted in favour of Vulcan to develop our project. Why? Strategically, we need to resolve the security of raw materials for Europe. We obviously understand what's happening geopolitically at the moment. It's obviously lots of things happening in the US, lots of things happening in China, Europe caught in between. So to have that sovereignty risk taken away, having the ability to secure raw materials is important. So they've come out with this Critical Materials Act. Its main aim is to provide an extraction, a certain percentage of Europe's demand through extraction, processing and recycling. And obviously we fall into two buckets. We fall in both the extraction of the raw material and the processing of. So we were awarded this stamp. And I guess what we're doing now, working very closely with the executives in Vulcan, is how do we unlock access to that European support? So we are in a lot of robust discussions at the moment with the Commission and the member states to make sure we can maximize that support. All in all, it's a privilege to be named, but we need to now convert this support into action. We were the highest performing lithium stock in 2024, and that's not by luck. Our credibility continues to grow. When we state we're going to perform an activity or we're going to achieve an outcome, we've been doing so. Much more than any other lithium company globally, developer or even producer. And I think that's where we really are getting the credibility. And I think it's demonstrable in the fact that we are going to achieve our goals. So we continue to set stretch targets. We continue to deliver. And I think that's worth of being the highest performer in 2024. We'll obviously strive to be the same performer in 2025. We've set ourselves some stretch targets, but we really believe that we can achieve all of those as well. I guess being in Europe myself, I'm obviously very connected with the European landscape, and it has to be understood there is a lot of tailwind at the moment in Europe. As I mentioned, with the geopolitical tensions globally, Europe is standing up on their own 2 feet. You can see just by the number of different policies and initiatives that are being driven, these all favour an investment to basically support Vulcan. Battery passports it's actually a new thing globally. It's not in the US, it's not in China, but in Europe, they're making sure that whatever goes into a battery, for a stationary battery or an EV, has to have a certain amount of understanding of where the carbon has gone within that process. So they are carbon accounting within the battery passport. Again, Vulcan, with its carbon neutral lithium, is a wonderful advocate to put into a battery, because obviously you're supporting a passport. As mentioned, the Critical Materials Act, fastest ever act to be passed in Europe. Fastest, within 9 months, which is world record speed. I know that doesn't sound fast when you've got different political organizations globally, but for Europe, that's very, very fast. We're now seeing the benefit of that act. There's other acts, in particular the Net Zero Industry Act. There's a lot of competitive acts. These are basically Europe saying that we're not going to let go of the climate, but we're also not going to let go of competitiveness. So the more recent part, when Ursula von der Leyen stands in front of her committee, she's saying that Europe can be competitive with the rest of the world, but we're not going to lose our focus on climate. And that's why they've got clean industrial deals, sustainable transport. I mean, that says it all. It's obviously a very clear investment plan within sustainable transport. We're expecting that in the next quarter. And last but not least, there's also an industrial decarbonisation. And that's where our geothermal energy really kicks in. Last but not least, and a phenomenal amount of effort and money from the German government is going into geothermal. And they've actually created what they call a geothermal acceleration law. It's going through Parliament at the moment. This again is a massive motivator for us to continue being an energy company, supporting the decarbonisation of our communities and the states, but the German government will be there to support us. That was one of the strategic reasons why we do have 2 rigs within Vulcan, our own drilling community, because we don't risk that the supply chain won't be there when it comes to rigs and people. So we really believe we're going to be able to capitalise on the support coming from the German state. Now, we performed with some of our lending group. We actually created an avenue to assess our project through S&P Global last year. This is a rigorous, I guess, ESI, S&G type framework where you go through a process where S&P take you through the loops, and basically they try to rate you whether you are a certain color. We've come out as dark green. The first time a mining and metal project globally has ever been awarded a dark green status. So, I mean, that's equivalent to like a PV project, like a PV cell. That's how small and low of an impact we have with our project. It's hard to fathom that when you think about, mining projects globally, and maybe that's not exactly where we fit in from a category, but that's where we are. And I think this is really important for our lenders group, our equity partners, to know that we're having such a minor impact on our environment and socially really is a driver, and in some cases a mandate for these banks or a mandate for our investors. So to have that is a highly quality stamp of the impact we're having. And it's said in those bars up there. When you look at how we're looking at scope emissions 1, 2, and 3, and then adding that total scope emission, we're still creating a negative impact. In fact, we're avoiding 10 million tonnes of CO2 with our phase 1 project. Interestingly enough, a lot of the other projects on that screen are also brine projects. So not all projects are the same. We're investing heavily in innovation and the way we look at circularity, and that's the benefit. Of course, we get a head start using a geothermal brine, but it doesn't mean we haven't put a lot of effort into designing out fossil fuels, designing out CO2. So we're very, very proud of this fact, and I think we've really been well recognised by the lenders group and investors because of this. So, I mean, we say this a lot. I know Francis and I get to speak on behalf of the company a lot, but we are uniquely positioned and we are poised for future growth as well. Why? Because, when it comes to our customers, our offtake partners, we're really having the first discussion is not about costs. It's not about price. It's not even about commercial terms. It's about CO2. And that's a genuine fact. The customers that are speaking to us want to know what is the lithium they're putting into their batteries. So these offtake agreements are really important. Obviously, they provide the revenue stream for Vulcan, but we're seeing high quality European counterparties come in and they continue to mount up. I can tell you that. I spend a lot of my time talking to a lot of these partners. So we feel like we're extremely well positioned for the long term, particularly with the length of some of our contracts. We've got an incredible asset. It is world-class, the Upper Rhine Valley, and particularly with the license position that we have. Phase 1, it's a 30-year design life, fine, but we're going to scale that production through time, through multiple locations. We've got licenses in Mannheim, we've got licenses in Ludwigshafen, and further north to Frankfurt and further south down to the Ortenau region. So again, we feel like we've got a very large asset there to develop from. As I mentioned, not all brines are the same. It's not just the fact that we've got a geothermal brine. The quality and the low impurity level of our brine actually sets us apart. And what that means, being an engineer myself, I know that we can convert that pure brine into a much lower capex and a much lower opex. And that does delineate us from a lot of our peers in the fact that we can compete, even when there's low prices allowed today, because of our process design, because of the quality of the brine, we can really operate at a low cost. Yeah, of course, we need to be competitive on a global scale, but I would also say that being able to provide cheap renewable heat is probably the most important part for our social license to operate. We work within a community that is really dying and starving for cheap energy. Europe has had a tough time going through wars and everything recently. The fact that we can provide cheap baseload heat that is green is a wonderful contribution to the communities, and therefore we benefit from that. I know a lot of us are passionate about our technology, and our absorption direct lithium extraction technology is getting a lot of attention. We'll go into it in a bit in a minute, but we are now seeing more globally as a company because of our technology. And to be honest, it also tells you that, when Rio are investing 15, 16, 17 billion dollars in capturing ADLE technology and resources, that we're in good company. So hopefully Vulcan was a little bit ahead of their time, but it's good to know that companies like Rio have also recognized that. And we're now one of 2 companies that has that technology in-house. And last but not least, something I'm very passionate about, because there's no point in doing all the things above if we drop the ball and can't execute the project. So we've got a world-class team in Vulcan. They've come from some of the most important, well understood and very local companies within Germany. And I feel like we really are set to deliver once we're ready and the project finance has been completed. So again, Vulcan is set to deliver. I spend a lot of time at this optimization plant. It's in Landau, for those who know your geography within Germany. This has basically been the first step to demonstrate that full supply chain. We've been operating it for a year now, and we're really, really good at starting to operate our ADLE. It's also showing the performance we expected, predominantly on the extraction efficiency, and 95% is not easy, but we're achieving that extraction efficiency through our commercial demonstration plant, and it's using our own technology, Volsorb. So again, we're really showing the world that Volsorb is competitive. It can achieve the results and the performance it needs. And that's why we're getting a lot of inbounds from a lot of international partners at the moment. So this is a real door opener for us. As much as we're focused on phase 1, we also know that that's a technology we can grow. It's also become a wonderful training ground for our operators. Our operators don't all come from a DLE background, so we need to train them. The benefit there is huge. Having our operators there for 2 years before they go to our commercial plant means that we can see really strong ramp up and startup performance with our commercial plants. That's worth a lot to Vulcan and our shareholders, because on a discounted cash flow, that's a huge value gain. So by having a competency level or capability level early on, because we've had them train on our optimization plant, it's worth its weight in gold. So we're seeing the benefits of that already. And of course, it's an intermediate product that we produce at our optimization plant called LEOP. It's lithium chloride. That's what we then truck up to Frankfurt, about 100 kilometers up the road, to convert into the battery grade material. And that leads us on to CLEOP, where we had a wonderful, slightly emotional, I would say, ceremony last November. We had a lot of important delegates from, politicians to off-takers to other strategic partners. And basically, you see a few of us cutting the ribbon there with the Mayor of Frankfurt and state ministers. And since January this year, we've effectively been producing battery quality material. And I don't want to understate how important that is and how difficult that's been for other, partners globally, particularly coming more from the hard rock position. We're seeing a really high pure lithium hydroxide being produced. We've tested it internally, we've tested it externally, and now some of our offtake partners have also tested it. So we're producing a very high quality battery grade product. In some way, it's almost future-proofing ourselves. So this continues to demonstrate that we can produce it, but more importantly, it represents Europe's first domestic supply of raw material to battery grade material, and that supply chain is proven. We spend a lot of the time, we've got some of our partners in the room today as well, but we're not going to get a slow start. Once we're project finance, we don't want to walk, we want to run. If anything, sprint. You can only do that if you've already brought your partners on board. And in our case, we've brought almost all of our technology and construction partners on board already. So we've been working with Serpent Hochtief, with Joel Proxer, with Nessie, with Burden, with Brom. We've been working with them for 6 to 12 months already. So when we get to the end of the year and we have our finance, we're going to run quite quickly. And that's really, really important for me. But what it's also been able to do, it's also been able to reduce our uncertainty. We're doing early engineering with these partners, predominantly to basically do further engineering, which then gives us more certainty and effectively gives us much more confidence moving forward that we're not going to see a risk appear or we're not going to see an engineering issue. So we feel quite privileged to have these wonderful partners on board, and we know that it's going to be a great project once we're up and running. On the phase 1 financing, again, I'd be lying if we don't say that we're spending a lot of time on this. It's driving a lot of the company at the moment, and we're seeing really strong signals, and definitely the light is at the end of the tunnel. Again, recapping on what we achieved at the end of last year, a very large package of support coming from a number of the commercial banks plus Export Finance Australia, nearly 879 million. EIB also supported a number of European grants had come through. In that case, there was BEW. And then we continue to see further support in the near future. This will be very much our focus for the next few months as we close out the financing. But there is a real strong confidence in getting to the end of the year and having the project finance, both on the debt side and on the equity side. If you don't mind, I'll ask Francis Verdeen to come up and give us a bit of an update on the lithium market.
Thanks, Chris. I'll be very brief because I think we've already touched on those points already, but just wanted to add a little bit of perspective here on what we're seeing as well, because as always, it's moving quite quickly. I think just wanted to focus on the European context. If you look at where the world is today, it's not a global world anymore. The world is deglobalizing. Supply chains are deglobalizing. They're regionalizing. You can argue if that's a bad thing or a good thing, but it's happening. So what we see in the European context is, as Chris mentioned, complete focus on electrification, decarbonization, and regionalizing, localizing the battery supply chain. Now, there were a lot of exuberant announcements and projections in 2021 from battery producers companies that were planning to be battery producers and CAM manufacturers in Europe. And there were some large-scale projections. Now, I think it's fair to say that the rubber has hit the road in terms of executing those projects. And look, not all of those projects are going to be successful. We've had some notable projects effectively fail. Northvolt's Swedish project was part of that, and that makes a lot of juicy headlines. So we thought it would be good to sort of refresh and see where we're at. Effectively 4 years on from these big initial announcements that were happening in the space, and see what the European market was looking like. And it's very robust. It's very healthy. So a lot of projects are still being built. I'd say the majority of the projects are still being built, vast majority of the projects. Some are operating already, some are in construction, and some are they're plans, but they're due to happen by 2030 or before 2030, which is not far away. So just to put that into context, so battery production, cell production, and cathode production, which is the part that uses the raw materials and the lithium, it's all going ahead in Europe. It's happening already, and it's growing at a very rapid rate. So the supply chain is regionalizing. Look, China has a massive dominance in the market, but Europe is taking action now and moving, and this supply is being built out. Just for context, so you can see on the screen in terms of cathode manufacturing capacity, what's in the pipeline for 2030 is about 860 gigawatt hours worth of CAM capacity. Now, obviously, we need to risk adjust that, right? We haven't adjusted a risk adjustment to that. So you would downshift that somewhat, but in any case, applying that figure in terms of lithium means approximately 600,000 tons per annum per year of lithium carbonate equivalent demand by 2030. That is a huge figure. So risk adjust that down by 30%, you still have a very, very large demand figure. For context, what we're going to supply in phase one, which is a big project that we're building, 24,000 tons per annum of lithium chemicals. So the gap in the market is very, very large in Europe. Europe desperately needs its own domestic supply of lithium. So we just wanted to refresh this. I mean, we talk about this a lot, but we really went into detail here on the state of the market with our market advisor. And I think this is a really good slide which kind of captures that. Also wanted to touch on what Chris mentioned earlier. So another thing we've seen, particularly in recent weeks, is a lot of action, corporate action in the adsorption type direct lithium extraction. Bit of a mouthful, we call it ADLE. So this DLE extraction from brine space. We know that Rio Tinto already moved into this space originally through the acquisition of Rincon. Then the acquisition of Arcadium came, and Arcadium was significant because honestly, the hard rock assets were not what I would call tier one globally. So we understand that this transaction was predominantly driven by the brine and the DLE aspects of Arcadium. Remember, Arcadium has been doing ADLE longer than anyone. So formerly Livent, formerly FMC, since 1996. And they recently acquired a technology company in-house, which has, let's say, a new iteration of this same technology. So a higher performing lithium extraction adsorbent. Not, we think, not too dissimilar in performance from our adsorbent as well. So Rio Tinto making some very big bets in that space. And then in the last couple of weeks, last few weeks, more announcements, more investment by Rio in ADLE. Cumulatively, and thanks to our team who did the numbers on this, we think that Rio has invested and committed about 17 billion Australian dollars so far into ADLE projects in lithium brine. And what that will mean is through ADLE, Rio will become the second biggest lithium producer in the world by 2035, according to projections. So Rio Tinto has looked at lithium, well, it's looked at battery materials and said, we like lithium. And it's looked at lithium and said, we don't really like hard rock because of the high cost, and we like ADLE in lithium brines, which is exactly what Vulcan has done. And they've also looked at it and said, we need the technology, the expertise in-house, which is exactly what Vulcan has done. And so what that means is through the investment that we've been doing since 2018, we are now the only other, to our knowledge, Australian company that has a large ADLE brine project and the technology in-house. So that positions Vulcan extremely well, I think, to capitalize on this growth of low-cost, sustainable lithium production going forwards. So just wanted to give an idea, I mean, where the large companies are going, where, if you like, the smart money is going, and it's going towards what Vulcan is doing as well. We think that's an interesting point. And just to finish off on that, we see big growth in the sector beyond our project areas. I mean, we see the application of our technology for multiple phases beyond phase one, and that's why we developed Vulsorb in-house. But we do have the ambition, if you like, to apply this technology globally as well. And so we've already entered into negotiations and in some cases some initial works to deploy our technology to other projects on a licensing basis as well. So we may be able to have an impact beyond our own project area as well. So that's something to watch out for in the coming months and coming years. I just wanted to mention those key points. I think that's an interesting point to hand back to Chris on.
Chris. Thanks, Francis. So we are proud to say we've named our lithium product. We call it the Lion, and it has a meaning, like all good acronyms. And I guess it's just worth going through that because we believe that having a premium, and an industry-leading product is worth being aware of what it stands for. So hopefully the V is clear for Vulcan. We are striving to be Vulcan and climate champions. Importantly, though, lithium itself is meant to be that sustainable product, but it's highly pure as well. It's actually highly performing. And I think I want to make sure that we're aware and our off-takers are aware of that performance. Clearly, we're proud of the fact that we are not using fossil fuels in our flow sheet. That's what the zero is rather than an O, because we've completely designed fossil fuels out of the flow sheet. Quite unique for any industrial process to do so. And of course, that provides the ability to have co-production of renewable energy to our communities. And last but not least, what we're striving for is effectively to have no net greenhouse gas emissions across our project life. I mean, ultimately, that is why Vulcan was born. Having a nice tag name V line to it also helps. So when you think about Vulcan and the journey that we're on, I think it starts to crystallize where do we believe we're going to create value. Clearly, we've got the ability to produce lithium and geothermal from a project. We will organically grow through our license position and deliver on these projects every few years. So that's a lithium 24,000 tonne per annum type lithium supply, and then we will deliver on the heat and power, whether that's 500 odd gigawatt hours of heat or whether it's 200 gigawatt hours of power. We will look at that optimization, but effectively that is Lionheart. We are delivering that type of result from our phase one project. However, it's not just the energy and the lithium, but as Francis mentioned, the technology becomes a massive, not just de-risking element, also becomes a value creation. Because if we can use that Volsorb technology, our know-how, our IP, to help others to decarbonize, then we can create value from that. And that's what we're looking to do at the moment. And as Francis mentioned, we're in some really strong discussions at the moment globally on how we can support other people to decarbonize. It's not just us that we want to decarbonize, we want to help others as well. One thing that doesn't change is our Vulcan values. We continue to be determined. It's hard not to be when you're running a company like ours. We'll continue to inspire others, and our climate champion mantra is also not disappearing. So again, just to give you an idea of where we sit regarding where we're going to create value in the future. And just as a reminder, and sometimes we do forget about it because we are heavily focused on phase one, but this district we're working in within Germany, the southwestern part within the Upper Rhine, it is a world-class lithium and energy district. It's been mined for energy for 100 years. In fact, there's around 1,000 oil and gas wells between Frankfurt and where we are. So it's heavily well known. It's a very well-known, I guess, geological system. And it's also, for us, the largest lithium resource in Europe. In fact, we've got 27.7 million tons of LCE equivalent, and that's only from 10 of our 17 licenses. I've mentioned the quality of the brine. And important for us is that, we will learn from one phase to the next phase. So we will see future phases get better and better and better, again, from a value perspective. So we're very cognizant of that. And so are the investors. They realize that obviously phase one is probably the worst that it will be. Staying with us for the future is obviously where they'll see a lot of the value as well. So, and we're in discussions. I spend a lot of my time on phase one, but of course, there's a lot of people that would like to talk about future phases. And of course, we're entertaining those discussions as well. And this is one of the blueprints for that expansion. So again, at the end of last year, I think it was one of our biggest days of volume trading in Germany is when we announced our partnership with BASF. Obviously, the big German industrialists, and now we're collaborating with them. And for me, this is a wonderful blueprint. Why? Because this is an example where you can find an industrial partner to take all the heat, which runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I mean, they have an energy demand. This one industrial site, think about Kwinana, you can look at the equivalents to BASF. They have one site that's the same size of that, but their energy demand is almost equivalent to the country of Denmark. That's how the scale of energy being used at this site. And they also have an incredibly large CO2 footprint. So by working with BASF, we're going to look to decarbonize, provide green heat, very affordable green heat. But the benefit for us is that we get to utilize the name of BASF, we get to use their land, we get to use the ability to create easy permit cycles, and importantly, we can lower the cost of the development. Again, looking at a much more attractive development for our partners. So we've completed a 2D seismic early this year. It was very successful. Again, with the help of BASF, there was very little impact to our environment, to our partners. We've also received almost all the approvals for the 3D seismic. So again, it shows you where we're moving on a blueprint scale. So again, we'll continue to prepare for that, but we feel like we're in a really good position with BASF and the local communities around Ludwigshafen. Okay, and just to wrap up, I love this next picture. This was 2 days ago where we shot it, but we did announce that we started drilling of our first production well at Schleidberg yesterday. It's a beautiful picture with the windmills in the back. Look, this is years of hard work to get to this point. We do try to celebrate our milestones, but now there is a real change in our risk profile, where hazards are. So we've spent a lot of time as Vulcan understanding that. We don't want to hurt our people, our contractors. We don't want to hurt the environment. So we've followed quite a rigorous approach to getting ready for this milestone, having signed off on all sorts of things, the mining authority, everybody else, but now we've started. We've got a number of intermediate milestones that we're looking to achieve. We are drilling a pilot well here as well, but it's still very deep. We're still talking around 4 kilometers. It's not a small well. So put that in the back of your mind. It's more like an oil and gas well that we're drilling. And hopefully we'll have results towards the back end of the year. I'm more than happy to talk to any of the shareholders when we're having a cup of tea or a coffee, tell you more about it, because this is quite exciting. And I guess it's really the next step for us as a group as we drill this well. So the targets for 2025, we've had a good start to the year. We've started producing the battery grade material at Cleop. That's been well received, I would say, locally within Europe and even globally. So we'll continue to start sending samples out. We're sending out a lot of material at the moment to help with our qualification process. We've been named European Strategic Status. It's a wonderful endorsement of the project. We've commenced the drilling, the well execution. Hopefully in the very near future, we will get the decision on some other funding programs, grants that we've applied for. Again, we've been quite confident about the process itself. We're working closely with the German government and the European Commission, but hopefully we get to announce something soon. Of course, we're looking to finalise the project financing. That's probably the biggest catalyst remaining at the end of this year. And what triggers off the back of that is, of course, awarding and signing the major contracts, starting commercial construction of phase 1. And probably just to the side, we will continue the qualification process, which means that we provide samples of our lithium hydroxide monohydrate, our battery grade material, to our offtake partners so they can commence testing that within their cathode material and their cells. We will continue and progress our relationship with BASF at Ludwigshafen. And I think a bit as Francis mentioned, we're going to continue to grow our business from a Volsorb licensing. So again, some stretch targets there. We really believe we can deliver and transform Vulcan to where it needs to be into execution and then soon a production company. So that's what we're aiming for. Thank you very much. That comes to the end of that. So I'll hand over back to Francis for the remaining part of the formal part of the meeting.
Thanks, Chris. Great. Well, there'll be thanks very much, Chris. So there will be a little bit of talking from my side to go through the formal parts of the meeting. So apologies in advance for that. The minutes of the annual general meeting of the company held in May 2024 and the extraordinary general meeting held in January 25 have been signed and can be made available for inspection from the company secretary. Shareholders will be given the opportunity to ask questions of the board as they relate to the particular agenda item and resolution. When you ask a question, please state your name and whether you are speaking as a shareholder, proxy, or corporate representative, so the board can best address the query. For those joining via Zoom, I ask that you please submit any questions or comments via the Q&A function, which can be found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Please start your question by typing your shareholder SRN or HIN. This will allow the moderator to identify you as a shareholder. If you'd like to ask your question verbally, type your SRN or HIN and then type "I'd like to speak." Once you finish typing, please hit enter on your keyboard to send. When you submit a question or comment, please start by typing which resolution it relates to so that it can be addressed at the appropriate time. For each resolution, we will take questions from the floor and then turn to questions online. Where there is a common issue, we will also group questions thematically. If there are any journalists joining us today, welcome. As I'm sure you can understand, we will prioritise questions from our shareholders. Should you wish to ask a question and are in Perth, myself, Chris and Felicity will happily speak with you after the meeting. If you're joining us online, please get in touch with our communications team and they will arrange for you to speak with Chris or myself. We will now move to the formal business as set out in the notice of meeting. The notice of annual general meeting is to be taken as read. Voting on all resolutions will be conducted by poll. For the purposes of the poll, I appoint Flynn Mitchell of Automic, the company's share registry, who has examined and prepared summaries of the proxy forms received to act as returning officer and to conduct the poll. Shareholders in attendance via Zoom that have already submitted a vote by proxy should note that your votes will already be counted towards the poll. You do not need to lodge another vote unless you wish to change your proxy instruction. Shareholders in attendance via Zoom that have not submitted a vote by proxy and wish to vote on the resolutions being put to the meeting today can do so by following the instructions provided in the notice of meeting. Please note that the online voting portal is now open and will remain open until the poll is declared closed. Your votes have been submitted prior to the poll being closed for them to count. Those shareholders in attendance that are entitled to vote on the poll are all shareholders, representatives and attorneys of shareholders and proxy holders who hold yellow voting cards. If you're attending more than one of those capacities, you will have been issued with as many voting cards as you have separate capacities. If anyone believes they're entitled to vote on this poll in any capacity and do not have a yellow voting card in respect thereof, please raise your hand now and a member of our share registry team will assist you. At the appropriate time, I will ask that you mark your vote for the resolution on the yellow voting card. If you are a shareholder and wish to cast all your votes for a resolution, please place a mark in either the for, against or abstain box next to that resolution. If you wish to split your votes, please write the number of the portion of votes you wish to cast in the corresponding for, against, or abstain boxes. Please note that the sum of the split votes must not exceed your total voting. If you are a proxy holder, a summary of the votes to which you're entitled has been attached to the voting card. If the summary of votes includes discretionary votes, these are yours to cast at your discretion. If you wish to cast the discretionary votes, please place a mark in the corresponding for, against, or abstain boxes. If your summary of votes does not have any discretionary votes, you do not need to mark your voting card and will simply need to hand it to the returning officer at the end of the resolution. All good. After all resolutions have been read and voted upon, please place the form in one of the ballot boxes that will be circulating the room. Proxies have been inspected and all those validly lodged have been accepted. Proxies have been received representing up to approximately 88 million shares, or 40% of the issued capital of the company. All undirected proxies or open votes that have nominated the chair of the meeting as their proxy will be cast in favour of each resolution in the notice of annual general meeting. We will now proceed to the resolutions set out in the notice of annual general meeting. To streamline the meeting, details of the resolutions, the proxy votes, and voting restrictions for each resolution will be on the screen. I do not intend to read them out to you as they will be there for you to view. There are 11 resolutions to be considered by the meeting. The first item of business is to receive and consider the financial statements and reports for the year ended 31 December 2024. This is a discussion item only and does not require a resolution. I formally table the financial statements of the company and its controlled entities for the year ended 31 December 2024 and the related directors' reports, directors' declarations, and auditors' report as set out in the company's annual report for the period 1 January to 31 December 2024. Matthew Beavers, audit partner for the company's external auditor, RSM Australia, is available to answer any questions to the auditors. Are there any questions from our shareholders regarding this item of business? There being no more speakers, I will move to the resolutions. And there's no questions online as well, by the way. We will now move on to resolution 1. Adoption of remuneration reports. Details for this resolution and the proxy votes are on the screen. When determining the remuneration outcomes, the board has carefully considered the advancements made over the year, which Chris has outlined, in combination with the external factors that may have had an impact on the company. The board believes the outcomes, as outlined in our remuneration report, are reasonable and provide appropriate alignment between executive performance, shareholder returns, and recognition of executive retention criticality over the next business phase. The resolution is open to discussion. Does anybody wish to ask a question from the floor? Online? There being no further questions, I now put the resolution to the meeting. Please use your ballot paper to vote on the resolution. Those attending virtually can vote via the online portal. However, are reminded not to click on next until they have selected their vote for all resolutions. Have all persons who intend to vote now voted? Thank you. The next item of business is resolution 2, re-election of director Dr. Heidi Krohn. Dr. Krohn is a chemical engineer and accomplished business leader with 24 years of experience in the chemicals industry. Since 2007, Dr. Krohn has been a senior executive with Evonik in various commercial, technical, and general management roles. At Evonik, she's been responsible for production, technology, asset digitization, OT security, and global product stewardship, and has recently transitioned to senior vice president and general manager of the business line oil additives at Evonik. Heidi has made an invaluable contribution to Vulcan since her appointment in March 2021, and we welcome her continued support of Vulcan. Details for this resolution and the proxy votes are on the screen. This resolution is open to discussion. Does anybody wish to ask a question? Online? There being no further questions, I'll now put the resolution to the meeting. Please use your ballot paper to vote on the resolution. I won't repeat myself again. Have all persons who intend to vote now voted? Thank you. The next item of business is re-election of Director Dr. Günther Hilken. I think I'll pass on the detail on each one. Only to say that, because otherwise it's going to get quite wordy, but only to say that Günther has made an invaluable contribution to Vulcan since his appointment in March 2022, and we welcome his continued support of Vulcan. Details for this resolution and the proxy votes are on the screen. The resolution is open to discussion. Does anybody wish to ask a question? online? No. There being no further questions, I now put the resolution to the meeting. Please use your ballot paper to vote on the resolution. Have all the persons who intend to vote now voted? Thank you. The next item of business is election of director, Miss Felicity Gooding. Felicity's obviously here if anybody wants to chat to her in person. I think Felicity's experience speaks for itself, and it goes without saying Felicity has made an invaluable contribution to Vulcan since her appointment as Group CFO in January 2024 and Executive Director in January 2025. And we very much welcome her continued support of Vulcan. And also Felicity has been very much instrumental in driving the financing process, as mentioned by Chris as well. Details for this resolution and the proxy votes are on the screen. The resolution is open to discussion. Does anybody wish to ask a question from the floor? Any questions online? There being no further questions, I'll now put the resolution to the meeting. Please use your ballot paper to vote on the resolution. Have all persons who intend to vote now voted? Thank you. The next item of business is Resolution 5, election of director, Mr. Angus Barker. Once again, I won't go through Angus's bio. I think this is well publicised and well known. And again, Angus recently joined us on the board and has made an invaluable contribution to Vulcan since his appointment as non-executive director and as deputy non-executive chair as well. And we welcome his continued support of Vulcan and the experience he brings to the board. Details for this resolution and the proxy votes are on the screen. The resolution is open to discussion. Does anybody wish to ask a question from the floor? Online? There being no further questions, I now put the resolution to the meeting. Please use your ballot paper to vote on the resolution. Have all persons who intend to vote now voted? Thank you. Now, the next item of business are number 6 to 11. For the remaining resolutions 6 to 11, details for each resolution and the proxy votes will be displayed on the screen. So we have resolution 6, issue of non-executive director service rights to Miss Josephine Bush. Resolution 7, NED service rights to Mr. Angus Barker. Resolution 8, the same to Dr. Heidi Groen. Resolution 9, the same to Dr. Günther Hilken. Resolution 10, issue performance rights to Ms. Felicity Gooding. And resolution 11, issue performance rights to Mr. Chris Marino. The value of the performance rights being issued to the NEDs is contained in their respective resolution. And there's also detail on the value of the performance rights to Ms. Felicity Gooding and Mr. Chris Marino. I put a bit of a footnote there. The total value of all the short-term incentive and long-term incentive performance rights being issued to Mr. Marino and Ms. Gooding is approximately 1.27 million and 1.13 million respectively, based on approximate share price of $4.20. The company believes these amounts accurately reflect the value of Mr. Marino and Ms. Gooding to the company and its strategic direction. The majority of this value is for LTIs, which are allocated over 3 years, and a one-off grant of 100,000 performance rights as short-term incentives, rewarding exceptional efforts over the past 12 months. The collective efforts of Mr. Marino and Ms. Gooding have contributed to Vulcan being the best performing listed lithium company globally throughout this period. Resolutions 6 to 11 are open to discussion. Does anybody wish to ask any questions from the floor? Any questions online? There being no further questions, or no questions rather, I now put these resolutions to the meeting. Please use your ballot paper to vote on each resolution. Have all persons who intend to vote now voted? Thank you. It appears the voting process has been completed. I request the Automic representative to collect all ballot papers. Please ensure your ballot paper is collected for your votes to be counted. I therefore declare the poll closed. Results of the poll will be lodged with the ASX after the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now completed the matters contained in the notice of annual general meeting. Thank you for bearing with me, and I declare the meeting closed. I thank you for all of your attendance, both in person and online. For those of you here in person, please feel free to join the team for refreshments. To everyone else, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.